Hello, my dear viewer. My name is Kalfan Swanik. Welcome to the Students Hour on Later TV Koboko. Today I have two special guests that are by my side. They are going to interact with me to share their ideas. They'll help us understand how corruption affects or has affected our country, Uganda. And at the same time, they will help us know what we can do to make things better. So at this juncture, I would want them to introduce themselves to you. So I therefore want to start from my left-hand side.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sadiq. My name is Aisha Chazek Bukar, a student of the secondary school. So proud to be here discussing about this brilliant topic. Thank you so much.
Great one. She's called Aisha. Next.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Presenter. My name is Nessie Garatifa, a student of the senior secondary school. I'm so privileged to be with you today at Lighter TV. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I am going to interact with them as far as corruption in leadership is concerned. I therefore want to ask any one of you to introduce for us the topic.
Well, once again, thank you so much, my program moderator. Well, it is said that one speech only becomes well if the heart says what the tongue, if the tongue says what the heart says. And to talk about the current and worldwide ongoing issue, and that's none other than corruption. It is spreading like an infection worldwide. In one aspect or the other, we have all ever come across this dishonest term corruption. According to political ideology's definition, corruption is defined as the dishonest behavior practiced by government officials who rule this world by violating people's rights and privileges. Mr. Presenter, I often hear people saying that time changes everything, but this dishonest term haven't changed for years. Gone are those days when bribes were given, where things were wrong, but presently, bribes are given to hide the right stuff. May it be a minor issue or a life that is threatening one. Oh, no. Corruption occurs in every sector. Even a school-going boy to a person whom everyone has seen to corruption. Oh my God. Bribery exists in form of spending money to hire officials. By the way, nowadays, a person who is not qualified enough can simply get a public sector job by spending money and giving bribes to high officials. How? Corruption exists in many various sectors, both political, social, and economical, in form of bribery, nepotism, and embezzlement. Let's take this live example of salary difference in government secondary schools, whereby arts teachers went for a strike for over 2 months, demanding for their equal salary pay with their science colleagues. The government took these teachers for each of the key teaching roles. A teacher with arts subjects should earn a gross salary of about 1 million shillings and a net salary of about 841,000 shillings a month, while a teacher with a science background should earn a gross salary of about 6.5 million and a net salary of about 4.6 million. But is this really being fair? If no, then team government should clearly come on board and tell us that arts teachers are no longer needed in secondary schools. Otherwise, it is hampering the growth of our country. Take this live example of Karamoja, where the State Minister of Karamoja Affairs told the anti-corruption court that the 2,000 sheets she received from the office of Prime Minister were meant for her personal gain, but meant for the landslide victims in her own district, Bududa. Oh no. And yet these sheets were meant for Bududa people, not Karamajans. This is already what you call nepotism in leadership. You cannot grant an advantage to relatives in occupation. On the contrary, when I reflect on our religious leaders in public institutions such as churches and mosques, I really feel a mix of pain because these leaders are not doing enough. One, they drive people to influence their decisions, and this is now a disease spreading like an infection. Therefore, corruption is a complex issue that requires a multifaceted approach to combat. I believe by understanding its causes, consequences, and forms, we can create a world that is transparency and accountability. So with this, I feel this is the introductory part of it that I can tell you.
That was her own understanding as far as corruption in leadership is concerned. Aisha, do you have another version apart from what she said?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Sadiq. Actually, she summarized everything about the introduction part of corruption. She talked of a lot of things, firms and the agents who are taking part in corruption, and I really don't want to dilute what she said, but as the guest who is here to talk about corruption in leadership, I would also like to add on the introduction part of what we are going to speak about today, corruption in today's leadership. So corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. It is not special practice by individuals or institutions in both public and private sectors. So this corruption is practiced in many forms. I can talk about embezzlement, just like the way she said, nepotism and the paying of bribes to people in order for favor, right? So those are the forms to mention but few, because there are a lot of forms that are practiced in corruption, but those are the key major ones that we are going to talk about today in today's program. So corruption has brought about a lot of impacts in our nation. I can bring an example of diversion of public funds. When the government maybe allocate funds in a particular society, you may find out that public money intended for services and infrastructure, it is redirected to personal consumption rather to the public, and this undermines the government's ability to deliver services and maybe controlling whatever the development in the country. This so-called corruption that we are talking about today has also impacted our nation in a way that it is worsening poverty. You know what? The corruption that's creating, and it is creating the cycle of poverty in our society, it is bringing about poverty in a way that the vulnerable, the local people or the vulnerable, especially those who are unable to support themselves in such other institutions, in social services like education and so on, they are driven or they are forced to pay bribes before accessing to these services, for example, education and health, which is really leaving them poor behind. And that's where you see that poverty is really rampant in our societies. Corruption is also bringing about reduced investment in our society. We have foreign investors, we have domestic investors, but due to the existence of corruption in our nation, things are really going down. There is no much investment in our country, and you can't realize that investment is part of development in the nation, but due to the existence of corruption, it is really hindering the development of our nation. So, according to me, this is the key introduction of what we are going to talk about corruption in today's leadership.
It's actual a true life. It's not a story for the gods. At this moment, I would also want to know the causes of this corruption. I believe they should be there. What could be the causes of this corruption?
Yeah. Mr. Sadiq, thank you so much once again for granting me the opportunity. We say that everything in this world happens for a reason. Even corruption itself has got reasons why it takes place, why people engage in it. And so just like a mother caning her child, this is just because maybe this child may be involved in some indiscipline cases. That's why the mother is punishing her or him. It's applied also at the same time with corruption. So according to me, corruption happens for a reason. You may find out there are so many motivations behind it which drive people to get engaged in corruption. Trust me, when I talk of low salary, it is also one of the most driven, or one of the root cause of what corruption is happening. Low salary or delaying of paying salaries with a public official can easily drive these government officials to forms of corruption like embezzlement and bribery in order to supplement their income. So if the government doesn't timely or doesn't provide or doesn't offer salaries to these public officials in time, you may find out that these people will go ahead and divert the public funds for their personal consumption in order to, as I said, to supplement their income. I also talk about lack of accountability. You know, in our nation, there are so many things that people get engaged in, also including corruption that we are talking about currently. But if these people are not held accountable for their action, for example, when somebody takes part in murder or embezzlement or anything, and the individual is not taken, or the institution is not taken accountable for what he or she has committed, trust me, soon or later, this very individual will also take part in it, because since the person is not held accountable, meaning this person will see it as part of culture, as part of life for it to happen, and there is no any penalty for it. So that's why I'm saying there is lack of accountability in our system. This is one of the causes that is driving individuals to take part in corruption. I also want to talk about poverty. When I talk about poverty can be caused by corruption, or corruption can cause poverty itself. When people are totally poor in societies, you know, they can get involved in bribes or embezzling funds. For example, you want to benefit yourself, or you want to relieve yourself from that so-called poverty. Obviously, it will be greed at some things that will drive you to take part in corruption. So those are the key causes that I feel I can present in today's program. Causes that are happening.
Brilliant one from Aisa. That is according to her own point view of understanding as far the causes of corruption in leadership are concerned. Latifa, back to you. I believe that you also have another idea apart from what she has said out. I would want to know it.
Well, thank you so much once again, our program moderator. What I hear people saying that everything happens for a reason, and I strongly do believe that everything around us is driven by a strong motivation behind it. Even corruption has some hidden causes behind it. One, let me talk about erosion of trust. Trust is a very fundamental principle in any successful leadership dynamic. How? First of all, leaders are entrusted with responsibilities, but when corruption kicks in, this trust is swiftly undermined. The concept of trust is very successful in today's leadership because it facilitates the bond between a leader and their followers. Two, I would like to talk about the point of gender inequalities in terms of discrimination in school leadership. Corruption not only affects the abuse of power, but also affects society as general. When you look at school, Honorable Aisha, have you noticed that these days in some free schools, leadership is not based on gender sensitivity? If yes, then some posts like head prefect, speakership, and INSA president, these posts are specifically meant for boys and not for girls. Is it that we girls have no ability and energy of commanding like boys? If not, then the electoral commission board in terms that governs the leadership sector in schools should clearly come on board and clear this doubt. Otherwise, there is a need to promote a girl child education.
To actually continue with, you said something so interesting about girl child education. Does it mean that girl child education has been abandoned in Uganda?
Of course, yes.
Oh, wonderful. That was actually their expressions as far the causes of corruption are concerned. Remember, we are actually in the political season. That's where we thought tries to come up with this kind of session. This is where majority of the personnel have actually engaged themselves in corruption. Politically, socially, economically, we do believe that these sectors are being affected by corruption. So back to you, my dear guests, I would want to know the political effects of corruption.
Well, once again, thank you so much, Mr. Presenter. Political corruption is a major problem that is affecting us not only in our country, Uganda, but many countries. I know many of you might be thinking that this happens in only well-established cities, but no, that's not the case. Corruption occurs throughout in metropolitan cities, towns, and villages. Even villages are part of this evil corruption. How? Well, political corruption reduces public trust in government. How? When when politicians start to engage in political practices such as bribery and embezzlement, the citizens, they lose faith and integrity of their leaders. How? They start believing that now their leaders are dishonest in all civic activities. And this makes it difficult, at the end of the day, it makes it difficult for a government to rule and pass effective policies that govern a society as genuine. Secondly, political corruption and worsened inequalities. Corruption often leads to concentration of resources and wealth in hands of a few. How? Politicians who are corrupt, they favor their own personal interests, neglecting the needs for the general population. And this has resulted into policies that at the end of the day benefit the rich and leave out the poor crying. By the way, Honorable Aisha, have you realized that nowadays government contracts are awarded to those businesses that offer bribes rather than those that provide better services? If yes, then people connect to similarities. When something similar to their life is talked about, they pay attention. Even corruption, a common thread, simply connects every person together. Therefore, I feel like corruption has really hampered the growth of our country, not one but many ways, both politically, socially, and economically. Yeah.
I take it place right here. I really love the energy that you're taking it to that peak. That was from Latifa. Back to you, Aisha. Do you have another idea from what she said?
Yeah, Mr. Presenter, since we are talking about corruption in today's leadership, and we are now in political season, so I would like to also add in something about that. Currently, we are now in political season whereby candidates are trying to show up interest, they are trying to campaign, they are trying to show up interest in different positions like MPs, local governments, and so on, these other posts that I can't mention. But are you aware that some of these candidates are using they are corrupting the citizens in order to win their trust by maybe paying bribes and involving things like nepotism, you know? If you have a connection from any relative who is already in office, trust me, for you to succeed for that office, meaning this very person will be the one to connect to you without even you working hard. Or this very person will be part of you and you will start bribing the community. Now look at the illiterate people around our communities. For them, they go where the majority is going, but they don't know what is really going to impact on them. And also this corruption is affecting us politically in such a way that it is denying the principles of democracy. There is some principles of democracy that talk about each individual has an interest to choose who or she wants to be the leader. But when you take a situation whereby you are given, maybe your interest was to vote Latifa as your candidate, as the majority are going to vote Latifa, now for you to come out, or maybe I will come out, I will see that no, it's not like that, and then I will start giving you bribes, meaning I'm taking away your interest of voting for the person that you want. And trust me, this is going to impact a lot in our country years to come in the future, because this very person is one of the agents of corruption. Are you aware? Because if you can't trust your hard work, if you can't win the trust of your candidate, of your voters just like that, you are driving yourself in such activities of being corrupt, bribing, or doing these other things, meaning you are one of the agents of corruption to come in future. And I also want to talk about the principle of the majority. You know, democracy has its guiding principle. If the majority says that we want Latifa to be the leader in our country, meaning the constitution or every part of any organization should abide by it. But currently, leaders are announced based on connections and bribes. The person who gives bribe to those people who are taking charge in voting counting, they are the ones most especially spoiling everything, because they are easily bribed by other candidates, which is really affecting the political status of the country. This is how corruption is going to deepen us. And trust me, if these people are voted just like that without not on merit, at the end of it all in future, these are the very people who will also take part in corruption. They will even lead. And yet we are here fighting against corruption to be minimized in our country. You see this? So this is how political corruption is really going deeply, and it is spoiling things just like that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that sincere and great expression. As far the causes of corruption are concerned, now there's still another critical part that I want to drive you into. That's actually the economic sector. how economically has corruption in leadership affected that sector?
Yeah, corruption is affecting us economically in a way that when I talk of things like investment in our country, it is really discouraging investment because we have foreign countries which are always donating funds in our country. We have domestic investment within our country, but because these leaders, these public officials are not being trusted, they are not doing the way it is expected, they are really bringing our country behind. It is leading to low development just because they are diverting these funds for their personal interest, leaving the population, which is, okay, the money will be provided for the general population in order to sustain, to see that every human being at least gets access to these other services that we are ever talking about: education, health, and school, education, health, and transport. But because of the existing leaders who are corrupt that we have in our nation, they are really not doing enough the way it is expected, and yet we have investors in our country who really want to see that our country gets developed. We have developed countries which started like us, just like, let me talk about Singapore. These are the countries which started just like this, investing and talking about corruption, but where are they now? They are really developed. It's just like also what we want to implement in our country. If we continue being honest and denying this so-called corruption, we can easily develop our country just in that way, because investment is really part of the biggest key of development in our society. But we'll find out that when investors come to invest in our country, people are just embezzling this money for their personal gain, which is really affecting our development in our society. Corruption is also leading to, economically, it is resulting to poverty in a way that when prices of goods are increased, when taxes are charged highly, we have people of different levels in our country. We have those lower people, we have the middle class, and we have those ones who earn higher. But now when taxes are charged highly, we have some people in our societies, they earn less but they spend more than what they even earn, and which is leaving them poverty behind there. And you see this, how it is affecting us economically. Somebody may wish to develop within a month, but what the person is spending is really not good. And it is also leading to bribes. For example, when you want to access to any health center, maybe your child is sick, parents may have 5 kids, and how is this person conducting herself to the health services? They find out these health services, the government may push them to get access to everything. Even are you aware that even currently now government health centers are also charging fee for treatment, and yet these government sectors are supposed to be for the local or for the population generally, for those who are vulnerable to get access to them at any time they feel. But currently, people who are working them, they're still charging fee for that, which is leaving the vulnerable poor behind there. When will I develop, and yet in a country there is no any free thing that I can get access to it. So this is how economically corruption is really bringing us behind in our country as we citizens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The tension of the session is actually getting more higher and more interesting. That was according to Aisa's own understanding. Now, Latifa, can you please back up apart from what Sai said?
Well, in actual sense, I feel like she has talked about everything, but still there is one point I would like to put across. Economically, corruption has affected our countries in various sectors. By the way, it started like a joke, but it's now spreading like a disease day by day. How? Let me talk about the export sector in Uganda. When you look at the export sector in Uganda, goods are being smuggled on their way before even reaching where they are going. And on the other hand, when you look at the high taxation that is imposed on the transportation of these goods, it's really making it difficult for the transportation to go on smoothly. And therefore, with this, I feel corruption has affected our country in not one but in many ways. Yeah.
My guess, actually your expressions were so brilliant. Now that you've aired great points about the causes, effects, what could be the possible precautions or measures that we can take about these causes of corruption?
Yeah, I have been guest today in this house. I would like to put some precautions to the viewers who are viewing us currently at Lighter TV. I want to give some words of encouragement to people outside there that let's stand together and try to create a society where honesty, accountability, and transparency are the norms. These three key things should be part of us, and even integrity. Because if we are lacking integrity, there is nothing that we shall change. Let's work together and try to support these corruption initiatives, and even demanding more from our leaders, because these are our leaders. They can help us, though some of them take part in it, but they can still help us. Together we can come up with a brighter future for ourselves and even for the generation to come, if we are really serious on what we want to achieve. As the greatest leader Nelson Mandela once said, the greatest glory lies not in never falling, but rise every time that you fall. So I want to urge everyone, let's rise above corruption and create a society where humanity and ethics are really valued. Thank you.
You're welcome, Aisa. I actually love the quote that you dropped to the viewer. Latifa.
Yes.
Another thing apart from what she said?
Well, my presenter, I would like to take you to the way forward, but before that, I feel like there is a sector that we have left behind, and that's the social sector. When you look at this sector, it is really important in our country, Uganda. Corruption has also affected the social sector in various ways, but specifically I'm going to talk about the tourism sector in Uganda. Usually when the officials in this sector receive money, they embezzle this money for their personal interests, neglecting the needs for the general population. And this has really resulted into poor management skills and insufficient advertisement on international level in order to promote what? Lifestyle industry in other countries. When you look at the way forward on how we can try to resist this dishonest evil practice, corruption, I feel like we should collaborate with international organizations such as the United Nations organization that really fights hard in promoting human rights. With this, I think it will help us to combat transnational corruption. Let's try to create a society that is transparent and accountable. We need to stay in a political peaceful environment. Therefore, we should put some strict laws that will really guide us in fighting against this dishonest and corruption. Whereby integrity, fairness, and honesty are the norms. Like she says, let's try to create a world where ethics and human rights are the norms. Yeah.
Good one there. According to us, she feels we should all be honest and fair to actually end up this corruption in leadership. That was according to her. Do you have another version apart from what she said about the social effects of corruption in leadership?
Yeah, socially corruption is really affecting us in a way that it has discouraged hard work and innovation. In a way that currently success is based on bribes and connection. As I said earlier on, if you have a relative in your office or in any institution, you can easily be connected, but are you going there on merit? No. And yet there are living people who are working hard in order to achieve their careers down, which is really demoralizing others in the society. That's why you are seeing people have studied but they don't have jobs. It's just because of the existing social corruption in our societies. And also bribes. Currently, people, for them to succeed in what they want to achieve, they pay bribes to those officials in order for them to get what they want. Now take a situation, the poor and the rich. Who will be successful of what he wants? No, obviously the poor will get successful, because the rich will get successful because this poor person may not have that money, may not afford the money to pay for that bribe, but this rich one can easily get access to it. So that's where you are seeing that poverty is really circulating in our society just because of those existing forms of corruption that are happening in our societies. It is also humiliating human rights in a way that individuals in societies are denied to get access to their fundamental rights like safe environment, education, and health. those things are not provided to them the way it is expected. The government can try its luck, but the public officials who are entrusted to deliver these services, they are not doing the way it is expected. Rather, they divert these funds for such things to happen or to occur for their personal use. For example, when the big hospitals like this, they are still charging bribes for them, and yet these are the health centers that are public and for everyone to get access in it. Because you understand that in our country we have people of different levels. There are those who can afford and those who doesn't afford. So the government caters for every individual in our society. Just due to the existing leaders that we have, particularly let me talk about the local governors, because the central government sometimes can try its luck according to me, but now the people who act as a bridge between us and the central government, these are the people who are worsening everything for the rest, and they are leaving the life of the commoner to be really so miserable. Corruption is also society has affected us in a way that it is increasing poverty. As I said earlier on, when goods are increased, when a lot of things are tightened, it can really lead to poverty for some individuals in our country. Since the little that you earn, the money that you spend away, you can't even save. Savings are not really encouraged because a lot of things are happening, things are changing day by day, which is discouraging people to invest their money in other programs.
Thank you, you're welcome. According to her, the government has to try its luck. Now, when we talk about government, it can be me or you, but let's not think far. We have a part to play as far as corruption in leadership is concerned. As we go to wind up the session, I really feel like to have it for some time, but since time is against, I really loved the way you've expressed it. You've really nurtured the world as far as corruption is concerned. Now, to be as your last words, can you please extend a piece of advice to the viewers outside there? Any one of you.
To those of you who are watching us at Lighter TV for this program, let's talk about corruption in today's leadership. My last word is that we being the citizens, let's vote wisely, let's not get influenced because of the bribes, because of families and so other things. Let's try to practice the principles of democracy as they are placed as they are running ground. Let's not get involved in other forms of corruption for those candidates who are applying. Let's try to be honest. Let's try to practice integrity in our society in order to see that things are put into place and everyone in the country is catered for. Let's not try to benefit ourselves, and let's try to push our country step by step. They always say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. The step that we take today, it's the step of one step that we take today, it will impact, it is pushing our journey forward. And let's try to work as a team in order to fight this so-called corruption. It's not only within, it's everywhere. As they always say, each grain tips a scale. You individual who are there, who are watching this video, you also have an impact to change the corrupt system that we are in currently. So everyone has the power to create change in our country.
A piece of advice from Aisa. We have a part to play, being honest and fair. That was according to her. Now, Latifa, your last piece of advice to the viewer.
Well, thank you so much once again, program moderator. Like I said earlier in my communication, trust is a fundamental principle that governs a leadership, that governs any successful leadership dynamic. How? Because this trust facilitates the bond between a leader and their followers. Therefore, corruption is making life worse for a commoner, and he is the only person who can raise his voice and bring about change. How? We can start by changing our thinking. We can start by ourselves and change our thinking. Let's stand together and let's come up together and stand in favor of a commoner and not corruption. Otherwise, let's decide to be loyal and valuable citizens.
Thank you very much, my dear guest. That was a brilliant one. I really love it. My dear viewer, thanks for watching on the Students' Hour on Lighter TV. We have come to the end of the session. For more interesting programs, join the conversation on the social media and subscribe to Lighter TV Koboko.